Here we go. See, this cable is not going anywhere. Maybe we just want to pull it a little bit more. That's it. So it cannot go anywhere, it can't touch anything. But it's not stressing this connection either. There's still a little slack here. So I'm happy with that. Cut off the slack a little bit. And that's how that cable will stay. Let's examine a little bit the rest of the stuff. One by one, we'll put them aside as we examine them. Okay, this is a six prong connector. Not on this board. There is no 6-prong connector on this board, so we don't need to connect that. Leave it out. There's an 8-prong connector. This is for PCI Express. On this board, there is no connector that matches this kind of job. We leave it out. That's another one that's out. This is both SATA power. We leave this one in because we're going to need SATA power. So we leave this in. This is another 6-prong connector for PCI Express. Again, we have established that there is no such a thing. On this motherboard, we leave it out. This little connector is for power to a floppy disk. There is no floppy disk on this computer. Floppy disks are not very much in use anymore nowadays. We have these connectors right here, which I happen to know that are the connector to my mobile racks. So I will leave these in because I will use them later on. And finally, we have a couple of SATA power, and we will only be using, actually for SATA, the only power that's going to get the SATA connector is going to be the one for the DVD writer. So we can see how there is a whole bunch of cables, all those cables that looked impressive, that looked very scary and whatever. Look at this, all of these cables, very likely we won't be needing them at all. So we'll bundle them up, we'll tie wrap them, and try to put them, where they don't bother anything. So I think it's now time to drop the processor cooler inside the case and make sure that this plate has perfect contact with the top plate of the microprocessor. As I was saying earlier, as you can see, there is a fan in there, and that fan is powered by this connector over here and is what's needed to cool off this very, very, very thin aluminum plates. That's how this whole thing chills. If you remember earlier, on the other side of our motherboard, we dropped a plate that's needed to secure these screws in place. So we're going to lay this thing on the side over here, and we're going to use our thermal compound. Very important. If you happen to mount this guy without a thermal compound, remove the cooling fan over here, because chances are that will overheat and it will burn the processor. This thermal compound is extremely important. And as a matter of fact, sometimes it gets old and dry and it needs to be opened up and replaced. Now, the one thing that's important over here is that as you squeeze, you want to squeeze in the center, and you don't want to really get carried away with this stuff, You want to squeeze in the center, and don't worry about I probably got carried away right there. I can tell you already. I put probably too much. something you don't want to do. But don't worry about spreading it around and all that. Leave it all in the center. These two surfaces make such a great contact, so flat, that just the pressure of this thing will take care of spreading all of that stuff around. So don't worry about that. Before dropping it in, there are a couple of things that you want to look at. First of all, the connector. How close is the connector? Well, there is a connector right there, and that's the connector for the fan. It's indicated. I don't think that the zoom is powerful enough to really be able to read, but right here on the motherboard, just like in all motherboard, it says CPU fan. Do you think you can see that? CPU fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So that's where you want to connect this thing. But also, what you want to look at in order for you to connect this in a way that makes sense is the air flow. You can see that there is a couple of arrows over here, right? And that tells you where the air flows. Now, if you're going to put, as we will later on, we'll put a fan over here that sucks in the air, shoots it this way, and then we're going to put a fan over here that actually pulls the air from inside the case and shoots it out of your computer. You can also reverse the airflow if you wish to do so, but I personally like to keep the air that shoots out close to the power supply, because the power supply heats up pretty much. So, for example, in this particular case, I would like to put this like this. The reason being is because the air flows that way, close to a fan that's sucking the air. So this one is pushing, this one is sucking. It's beautiful. And also there is some air coming out this way, which is going to get in the way of the air flowing this way and being sucked by this fan. So I like the air being shut this way and that way. So this is how I'm going to drop the cooling fan. Now I'm gonna route this in a way that makes sense.